Hi everyone, I'm Tracy Lewis with We Are Winter Garden. Welcome to episode 36 of Straight Talk, No BS with Matthew's Hope, where we will be revisiting one of our most impactful guests. One of the goals of this podcast is to dispel some of the common misconceptions surrounding those experiencing homelessness. Part of that mission includes introducing our viewers and listeners to real people that have experienced or are experiencing homelessness. Now let's go back to hear the conversation between myself, Pastor Scott, the founder and CEO of Matthew's Hope, and Shelley, who was once a guest of Matthew's Hope. And Shelley, you have a story to tell us. But before we get into that story, can you tell us what you do now?
Right now I work for Discovery Church. I am the First Impressions Coordinator.
Okay.
Which means I work with volunteers. I am in charge of the relational side.
Okay.
So I actually get to do what I love and I get paid for it.
Nice.
So it's just a great job.
That's fun. And how long have you been doing that for?
I started working at the church when I entered Matthew's Hope, cleaning. And I did that for about 5 years. And then they approached me one day and asked me if I would be interested in swapping over to the First Impressions Coordinator. And I've been doing that a little over a year.
Exciting. Sounds fun.
Yeah.
Pastor Scott, do you feel that Shelley matches what people think is homelessness?
No, I think most people think of the guy they see on the corner panhandling, will work for food, and then they say, hey, I got some work for you. So, well, I'm not really, I've got to be here, type of thing.
Yes.
First, since we touched on that, the better percentage of those folks aren't even homeless. And the ones that are, the challenge is they're not going to use your money the way you intended.
Mm.
The folks that are seriously wanting to get their lives together, they're someplace like Matthew's Hope.
Okay.
So Shelley is definitely not the atypical of the folks that people think of.
Right. So let's dive into your story a little bit. What circumstances started your homelessness?
I was married for 30 years and he left. And when he left, I have 3 children and one of my children is disabled. And the challenges of carrying all hats was a little much for me to bear. And so I ran to a vodka bottle. And I stayed in a vodka bottle for about 3 years. And once I realized that I was losing control, I had my youngest daughter watching my disabled child. She had to quit school and take care of Olivia while I tried to work. I still worked the entire time to bring in income, but it wasn't enough.
Right.
So when I realized that I was losing, I left the house and we moved into a hotel room. When I realized that I didn't have enough money to pay for that next day or that next week, and I was having to accept to live in a car. And I went to Discovery Church and I talked to the pastor there, and Pastor Dale Ward and Timmy Ward, let me move in with them for 2 weeks, but it was only a temporary fix. They introduced me to Scott Blue. I went on a Tuesday and I answered all their questions and I moved in that very day. I got a key and I worked that program for over 2 years. And it was the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life, but it was the most rewarding.
Yeah.
They loved me back to life. And they gave me my life
That was important, right?
Yeah.
Scott, do you remember the first time you met Shelley?
Oh, I do. And my first thought is, what kind of mess do we have here?
Was she a hot mess?
She was a hot mess.
Yeah.
Well, and she had, here's the thing. There's the way we have set up our program, which is typically you kind of work your way in. And in Shelley's case, quite honestly, I met Olivia. Her daughter was born with Down syndrome, and I fell in love with her. And so I'm sitting there, and then I met her younger daughter, Kelly, and very much fell in love with her because I'm looking at this girl who's dropped out of high school, and she's helping her mom fight for their life.
Yeah.
She's caring for her older sister, who is much more like having a much younger sister.
And how old was she at that time?
Kelly, what was she, about 17, 16? 16, yeah. Yeah, that's right, yeah. So, she had taken on a lot of life really quick.
Yeah.
And so, it was one of those things that it's rare that I'll just move somebody in that quickly, but I think it's because of Pastor Dale and the fact that Discovery was also in her corner, that God just put it on my heart, this is someone we're going to move on. We're going to take a shot and see what happens here. And I will be forever grateful that we did.
Yeah.
Because I have thought years later what life would look like had we never crossed paths for her. And I'm not sure my life would be the same either.
Aww.
Don't make me cry in this episode.
You never said that.
When you start talking, I'm like, oh gosh. Okay, reel it in. Sherry, did you have an idea of your own of like what homelessness was, or what a certain person looked like? Or
the only time I've ever encountered homelessness was when on my way to work, you stop and get gas. You see a homeless person there. You go in, you buy them something to drink, you buy them something to eat, you give them a few bucks, and you go on with your day. That's all I knew. But once I experienced homelessness, today I will literally sit on the curb, have a conversation. What brought them to homelessness? It's not addictions. It's a loss of a job. It's the death of your loved one. It's the simplest things, medical. It doesn't necessarily have to be what a typical,
like a choice of somebody. Like,
like they chose to
do it. Like, why don't you just not be homeless? Like,
I'll tell you one time,
like
I had a story. One time I was in the, one of my side jobs when I was in Matthews Hope was to clean out the showers on a Tuesday on an outreach. And I'm crying because I didn't want to clean these showers out. Yeah. And so I'm in the shower.
Are they really dirty?
Oh, they're terrible.
Are they stinky?
Oh, they're terrible.
Okay.
So I put on
Let's set up the picture here.
I put on my Christian music and put on my headphones.
Get your head right.
And I'm sitting there singing. And God just really showed me that a lady that had just lost her son, that couldn't process the loss, and which caused her to eventually down the road of homelessness. And as I was listening to this song, I was just crying for this lady. I still to this day have never met the lady, but I know that she was there. And so now my heart towards homelessness is totally changed. I see it more as a way to bring us back to who we really are, that the challenges that we go through in life, if you are not proactive, then you're going to have to live a reactive life. And I don't want to live a reactive life anymore. I want to be proactive. So I have to set myself up. And the things that I learned through Matthews Hope, the life skills, the social skills, the things that I wasn't taught as a child, they were able to.
You didn't have those tools in your toolbox. So when you went through this trauma, it just exploded on you.
Well, I didn't even know I needed them till it was brought in my face and said, you don't know how to do that. And I was like, I don't. When I was in Matthews Hope, I had bad credit. I didn't have good life skills. I just was pitiful, just pitiful.
Scott, did you want to add anything? I don't want to. Did she have any setbacks while she was going through the program?
Her setbacks weren't huge compared to some we deal with. I mean, she just didn't fall off the wagon. I've had people do that. Okay. When I say fall off the wagon, I'm not saying necessarily that, because what people don't understand, most of our folks really don't come through with addiction. In her case, she was addicted to alcohol. But just falling off the wagon of trying, it's too hard, it's too much, it's too
like giving up.
But because it's not easy to recover your life, it takes a lot, because people don't realize too that this didn't just happen to her overnight. It was a succession of things that took place, And all of a sudden it felt like it was overnight, but it's like, oh, I didn't expect to see myself here.
Yeah.
You know, but one thing Sherry will tell us about sometimes is she actually does a little counsels with and mentors some of our other homeless women now on occasion. And one thing she would do is she'd get mad as hell at me. And she would
imagine that.
Yeah.
Go figure.
Yeah. Spawn of Satan here. And she'd get upset. And, you know, sometimes she had the right to, because there's times I will push a little bit to see how they're going to react. There's times I say no, only to know what's going to happen when someone says no to you. And so, but Sherry realized that she wanted life more than anything else. And so she would lay out her stuff. She'd tell me how she'd lay it out on the floor, and she'd talk about where she was.
Oh, no, let me tell you the story. Sorry. Let me tell you the story. I went into my advocate meeting and I was trying to prove a point of something that I wanted to do. And he said, okay, Sherry, you're going to have to bring everything in and prove it to me on paper. Document it out. Okay. So I went home and I went through every paper I knew. And when I went in the next week, I said, okay, Scott, I'm ready. And I literally went in his office and sat on the floor and had like 7 different piles. This is why I need this done. And it was all pertaining to my daughter, Olivia. See, when you have a special needs child, you have to have guardianship. Then you have to, get on a med waiver and a CDC plus, and you have to do all of these different steps. Well, at the time when my husband left, it was enough of a challenge just to try to keep him home, take care of a special needs child with 2 other children, plus work. So I let all that fall on the wayside. So when Olivia graduated high school, I procrastinated so bad that I didn't even know where to begin. So Matthew's Hope taught me that the life skills that you do, that you break it into boxes. So you work on one thing at a time. So instead of looking at the big picture, which is overwhelming, and you feel like you're failing, there's no way you can accomplish all of this. It's too big for me to handle. He helped me understand, you put it in a box. And work at one box at a time. And by the time I ended and I graduated from the program, I pretty much had all of them done. Yeah. So that was a big help. And I still do that today.
That's really good advice for all of us.
I even want to know who this guy is. Who?
I don't know.
And here, it's interesting also because the other things that she faced was, when a special needs child reaches 21, they can no longer go to Orange County schools. Oh, okay. 22. I'm sorry, 22. 22. So now it's like, now we got another thing. And then the other part is, here's the craziest part. We had to get chromosome testing on Olivia to prove she had Down syndrome.
Yeah. Wow.
Now, I think we can all say, and Shelley has a son that was born with Downs. You can spot Downs from about 100 yards away. And I'm sitting there going, are you kidding me?
Right.
We're going to have to go through these hoops.
So another challenge that you had to face.
For this child to get the care she needs. I mean, she was not receiving any special services. There's things available that Sherry wasn't able to get, partly because she didn't know, but partly because it's so hard to do. And so we kind of just had to just take her by the hand and say, well, we don't know either, but we're going to walk through this, and we've never seen this before, and we're going to find out why. But I just remember being so bothered by the fact that, are you kidding me? You're going to make us do this before we can take the next step? Wow. And, but it's been worth it.
Yeah. Sherry, could you imagine where you would be now without Matthew's Hope?
Oh, man,
especially with the help with your daughter. I feel like that was a lot of challenges that you had.
If God hadn't intervened, because I literally, in the hotel room, fell to my knees and cried out to God, I surrender. And I meant it. And everybody that I work with now, that I try and to get them in Matthew's Hope, I try to be as truthful as I can to let them know that this is a hard program. You will have to do things you don't want to do, but you have to surrender. You totally have to surrender, because the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. Well, my thinking was totally wrong. I believe if I hadn't have entered into Matthew's Hope and hadn't surrendered, that I would have lost the custody of my children. And that would have been very devastating.
I can't
to
even
me.
imagine as a mom, like just hearing you say those words, even like thinking you had to go through that and fear, like might lose my kids.
Because Scott not only had to help me, but he had to help Kelly, my youngest daughter. He had to step in and play the father role, and she was a teenager. So she was, teenagers.
Yeah.
And she was a hot mess.
Yeah.
And Scott did not let her get away with anything. And out of the 2 years that we were in the program, she went from living at home with me to where she went and got her GED.
Wow.
She got her first job. She couldn't keep any of her first paycheck. She had to turn it all over. But when she graduated from the program, she had a car that was paid off and $4,000.
Wow.
So then she was able to see what hard work does and the importance of saving.
Right.
So not only did he help her then, but he ingrained in her now.
Setting her up for success.
Yeah.
Because she's been through those steps with you, and then.
Well, it was kind of funny because, our children often emulate what they see.
Right.
Okay.
We talked about that. What was it? Generational homelessness.
Yeah, generational homelessness. But as a general statement, kids kind of absorb what they see, and that becomes the way they will act too. And so there was times when Sherry wasn't combative, but she was sure of herself in something. And I'd say to her things like, "So how's that working out for you?" And that's kind of,
I would hate to hear that. Be like, not good, but we don't need to talk about it.
You can't even say anything. That's the worst part.
Right.
You can't even defend yourself if you're smart.
You give it a shot.
Yeah.
You give it a shot if you want to, but I'm probably going to come back at you. But instead of just getting, look, I would realize sometimes that she was angry with me and not happy with what I said and kind of put the mirror in her face. But then she was smart enough to process it and go, okay, there's a reason why he said that. One of the things I don't know if you remember me telling you, said you got to embrace your homelessness. You got to embrace the fact of where you're at. Because if you start thinking you're different than someone else, I have homeless people every day that come in and I'm not like them. Well, what makes you not like them? Who are they? And what happens often is they remain homeless because of that.
Because of
it's prideful. It is insane. Because you're sitting there going, and I've actually said to people sometimes, I may have said it to you at times, I'll say, you know what, when I'm going to go home tonight, I'm going to set my AC at 72 degrees, get my big king size bed, and I'm going to sleep real nice and comfortable. Where are you? Not as a put down, but say, if you're smarter than me, why am I over here trying to why are you here?
Yeah.
You must be here because you recognize you need some help.
Right.
And Matthew's Hope is willing to walk with you. And if you stumble, we're willing to help pick you up again. But a lot of it is kind of helping you help yourself by building your roadmap to the future. And that's why, Sherry, her success through this was something that inspired me to continue to
let it all out. It's no BS. Just
inspired me to do more because I said, look, if this girl can do this under these circumstances, there's no excuse.
Right.
There's no excuse.
Right.
And we each have our own trauma, and some trauma is dealt with better than others and dealt differently with people. And it's time when you got to sit there and go, okay, allow that trauma to become part of my superpower. Okay. People ask me sometimes, Scott, if you could relive all the stuff you had to go through. And like, no, but I'm so blessed that I did because on this side now I can look back and be very thankful that I'm here when many of my friends are in prison or in jail or dead. And so when I watch Sherry fight through, fought through addiction, had to fight for her daughters, had to fight for, and then have something left at home for herself. And that was tough because when you're at Matthew's Hope, we occupy a lot of your time.
Oh, girl. Like just example of my day. I would have to get up at a full-time job. I would go to Lowe's and make paint. I would leave there, go to the Hope Chest, sand, paint, refurnish furniture. Then I'd either have life skills on Tuesdays, Bible studies on Thursdays, and then I would have to attend an AA meeting.
Okay.
And then when I got in the program, do 90 and 90, which means do 90 meetings in 90 days.
Wow.
Well, you think after the 90, you're done.
Yeah.
No. Do 90 more.
You're just getting
And
started.
then do 90 more. And then do 90
All
more.
while being a mom.
Oh, yeah. Oh. And then you had to cook supper. Then you had house inspections. You know, it was just crazy. It was crazy. I look back at it now and don't know how I got through the program.
Wow. Yeah.
It was definitely God, because he empowered me to be able to give me the confidence and the knowledge and the means and the ability to do things for myself, because it was the only way I could get through this program.
Yeah.
Because they don't hold your hand. They make you do it on your own. They will confront you. I remember one story. Scott had come in the Hope Chest. It was on a Saturday. And he comes in there and he just kind of checks on us and sees what everybody's doing. And then he'll give different projects to Bill, Greg, or whoever's in the program. And he's over there telling everybody what they want to do. And so I had wrote a poem about a dresser. And so I didn't make my hours one day. And so he made me go in on a Sunday and make my hours up. And I go in there and I'm crying. So I got time to tell this story?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
So I get in there and it's on a Saturday. I'm the only one in the program that has to make up these hours. Bill's in the shop just fiddling on his phone and I'm out there sanding. It's not fair.
Right.
It's not fair.
Yeah.
So as I was crying over this dresser, if anybody's ever refurnished a dresser, you always know that the first thing on on the furniture is your polyurethane. It's the shine. And God just really revealed to me that is what you want people to see outside the window. That represents the polyurethane. Well, then I started sanding. And after I got through the polyurethane, then you get to the paint. Well, the paint is the mistakes that you make in your life, the bad decisions, the divorce, the addiction, whatever the case may be. Well, as you're painting and you're sanding through this paint, my arm is getting really tired, but I have to keep going. So as I clean off this paint, then you get to the stain. Well, when you get through the stain, that's the hardest part because it's really deep in the wood. And the best thing to know about the wood is you can't go to the right, nor can you go to the left. You got to stay with the wood or you're going to make scars. You're going to ruin the wood. So as I keep on sanding, I'm getting through this wood, through the sand or through the stain. And then I had to use this tool because when you get in the corner of the dresser, you have to get the stain out of the corners. So I got the tool, put the sandpaper on it, and I'm over there doing that. And then I just felt like this is Matthew's Hope. Matthew's Hope is a tool that's getting the stain out of these corners that nobody else can see. You don't want them to see. So as I'm getting that off, then you get to the plain wood. That's the raw, how God created you or created me, was this raw wood. And Billy told me one time that as you put water on wood, it brings it back to life. And at that very moment was when I was crying on this dresser. And that God showed me that as I was crying, that was bringing me back to life. That was healing me. So when I got home, I started journaling all this out. And I was able to put it on because I was in the Hope Chest, I was able to put it on a cabinet door.
Yeah.
And I burnt it in the cabinet door. And I looked back on it the other day. I went in there and looked at it, and the grammar was horrible. It was terrible. I'm educated now more. But that to me was the beginning of Matthew's Hope, from my transformation, from just really surrendering to Matthew's Hope. I had surrendered to God in the hotel room. Sure. But then God used Matthew's Hope to really dig deep because I needed somebody to be stern and strong and to get to where they needed, to where I could hear. Yeah. Because I was already 50 50 years old when I went in the program.
Yeah.
So when you're 50, you kind of think you know it all.
Right.
And it took somebody stern and hard and then turn around. And the whole point of the story is that day when I wrote that, journaled it out on the paper,
Mm-hmm.
Scott was in the hope chest with the guys telling him what to do. And I said, hey, Scott, come here. I want to show you something. I was very new to the program. He barely just knew my name. And so as I'm reading this poem to him, I remember you bending on your knee to hear the poem. And when I looked up, when I got through the poem, tears was running through his eyes. That was the first time that you and I connected as one. And ever since then, he has been my security,
Yeah.
My protector.
Yeah.
So thank you,
Scott.
Blue.
How do you feel? That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yep.
How do you feel when people tell you that they had their chance just to leave them alone? Have you heard that before? Because I've heard it I've heard
Every
people
day.
say that. So I can't imagine how many times that you've heard it being.
I think the hard part is the vast majority will tell you to leave them alone. I got this. I don't need you. I mean, I'm probably the most flipped off man in America. I can't even repeat some of the things that are said to me and words that are used on me. You kind of become bulletproof. The hard part is that for me not to talk someone into staying, but to be able to also share with them that the importance of how much God loves them and how much more life is ahead of them if you can get through this difficult time, and then getting them to understand again, this didn't happen overnight. It's kind of like I didn't wake up one day and look in the mirror and go, God, you got fat. Okay. I mean, I saw it coming. Okay. But then one day you look at it and you go, woo, what happened? Okay. But it took time. And so it's going to take time to get healthier. It's the same thing. It's going to take time to get healthier to be able to go out and live the life that God intended for you, and what's really funny is some of our those that really push back the hardest have been some of our best success stories, but they push hard back, but they realize they start to see the growth in themselves, and they started to understand the growth in their faith, and that we weren't the enemy, that we are here, that God kind of placed them in their path to kind of walk them along. I think the hard part is that, we do see so many, I don't know if failure is the right word, but
hurting.
But we see a lot of hurt.
Yeah.
And
they're hurting.
And that's hard. Sometimes I just lay down at night and I don't sleep well.
Yeah.
Because you think about the one that got away and you think about the one that you see, because we're always identifying like Shelley said in one of our previous episodes, we're looking for what's that tool they have? Do they have a degree? Do they have a skill set? Do they have a car? Do they have a job? Is there something we can start with?
Yeah.
And so you see someone that comes in with not all the challenges that Sherry had, and they're giving up so quickly. And I think that's one reason why God has had Sherry stay in my life and Matthew's Hope, is because, one, she reminds us, but also the fact that there's times where I'll say, hey, I need you to just have a little chat with my friend over here.
Yeah.
Who has one child who's just a rambunctious little boy.
They need to see their potential. Because I know that you get beat up just in life. We all do.
Sure.
And that you come to a point to where you need somebody to speak life and truth to you. And that's Matthew's Hope. Whether it's soft or hard, but it always, but it always ends in soft, and that's the best part. It's because a lot of guys and gals that face homelessness are treated in such a way that when they leave like for me, when Jimmy left, my ex, when he left, my self-worth was minimal. It was hardly nothing. And it took a lot to them to love me back to life.
Sure.
I had to not only believe that I could do it, but then I had to exhibit that to my children. And Scott used to tell me, he would remind me, Kelly, Olivia, they're watching everything you do. this all, that
Yeah.
you are their example.
Right.
And that was the best words he ever could have said to me at that moment, because that what empowered me to keep going.
Yeah. So, Scott, how would you feel if I said about Sherry or any of your other guests, like, they blew it? Why are you spending so much time on her? Why are you giving her this tough love? Just let her be. Let her do what she's doing.
I mean, one is she's worth it. And I think we have to understand that all of us were born as one of God's children.
Mm.
And for some reason, we get off this, we become jaded by the world. You know, I think that, you know, when I decided to open Matthew's Hope, I drew a lot off my own homelessness and things like that, because I guess I wanted to do what I thought should be done to help people, you know, a dignity aspect of it, and that genuinely care. You know, it's kind of like when we were talking a little bit before we started tonight, and I told Sherry, I said, you know, I still every once in a while kind of look over my shoulder, you know, what happens if I become homeless again?
Mm.
You know, and I think the fight is to help people lose some of their ignorance by education and understanding what the face of homelessness really does look like, and the fact that people do get out of it. But the world makes it very hard to get out of homelessness. Mm-hmm. You know, I hear people all the time say, well, they choose to be homeless. I've never met anybody in my 61 years that chose to be homeless. Mm-hmm. I have met people that have chosen to remain homeless because they've given up. They bought into the lie. They're tired. They have been, you know, spit upon, looked badly upon, talked poorly to, and they bought into the lie. So they just kind of it's almost like a little kid. You tell me often how awful I am. I'm just going to be awful.
Right.
Might as well get something out of it. You know, I'll just be who you claim I am. And I think that it's more important that we do look at people for the amazing and wonderful creation they are, and love people for who they are, not for who we think they should be. You know, I've told Sherry and others, God loves you just the way you are. He just loves you way too much to leave you that way.
Yeah.
And so we're constantly growing. And I think I can even say it at where I'm at. You know, I'm at my age, I'm still growing. Mm-hmm. If I ever get to the point that I feel like I've got it all figured out, then something's wrong.
Yeah.
Because on this side of heaven, I don't think that's going to happen.
Right.
I believe I know nothing.
Yeah.
I claim to know nothing.
It does make it a little easier.
It does.
You know?
I don't.
Well, the nice thing, too, is if we set the bar low enough, you know, I just tell people I'm the dumbest guy in the room. And so if I do anything outside of that, they go, wow, I don't know where that came from. That guy came up with something. But, you know, but I think also sometimes for me personally is that's almost self-talk to me that's not always healthy.
Yeah.
It's because it's that old protective gear we put on. Mm-hmm. If I just tell you up front that I'm not smart, if I just tell you up front I'm not worthy, then when I prove to you how unworthy and how worthless I am, then none of us will be surprised. Yeah. And that's why I think that more lately I've been more in tune with the creation we have been given to live in, the creation that we are, and trying to, again, like I said earlier, you know, let's find that superpower. I think everything that you've been through has become your superpower. Mm-hmm. It makes you this strong, intelligent, caring, loving, compassionate woman who is now, and the thing about Sherry is she didn't just turn her back and move on. I won, I'm out of here. Mm-hmm. She's constantly now reaching back to the next behind her, and seeing, and she's pre-qualifying, if you will, people knowing what we expect, and saying, you know, I think I got somebody you want to meet, you need to meet. Yeah. And that's a huge thing, because everybody wants to bring a homeless person to me. And the reality of it is, until you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, until you make the phone call, chances are it's not going to happen.
I love that. I think it's important that we all remember too, that when we see like the tent city and people that are sitting on the sidewalk, that they're like Sherry. They're like me. They're like you. Like, and they have a story. And like you said, you sit with them and you learn more about them and why they're where they're at and where they want to be and whatnot. I think it's important that we're just not writing off these people, because they're not just, they're humans like us.
You know, too, I would love to speak to the audience that are watching now and just let you know that a lot of people that are homeless out here need you, and that they need a shot to have a life that is independent, and that if you have a heart to give and to help, Matthew's Hope is a great way to help others and to give back to the hurting, the lost, and that he has got a great plan set up to show them exactly how to live a proactive life instead of living a reactive life. So I'd appreciate all your help, and maybe I'll see you on the other side one day.
And Scott, how can people help?
I got nothing. I got absolutely nothing.
Where do they go if they want to provide funds, cash funds, if they want to attend fun parties, fundraisers, sponsorships?
If people follow us on our Facebook page,
okay,
or our website at matthewshopeministries.org, on there it shows events that we have coming up, opportunities for people to serve, different ways to give. I mean, it really, some people are in better position to do money than others, but it's time, talents, and treasures.
It is.
But my feelings are, if each of us do a little something, God does big things with that. It's kind of like, we always talk about the elephant in the room. How do you eat the elephant? Well, you one bite at a time. But if you do something, and Sherry does something, and I do something, and the rest of us get in on it, all of a sudden you've got something to work with. I mean, the reality of it is to understand where Matthew's Hope even is now compared to when you were there.
I know, because when I was in the program, we needed volunteers to simply take the mothers to the doctor, or take the kids shopping, or they could help out with transportation, help out volunteering on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I even been there on Tuesday just to sit outside and just to listen, just to listen to their stories, because a lot of times they are not heard, and they don't feel like they're worthy to even speak. And once you are able to get somebody that's sitting there hard and bitter and just mad because they just don't trust anybody, because every time they try to give of themselves, they get hurt. So then they just learn to move on in the future with a wall up. And so if you just sit outside, and little by little, they'll open up, and you will not believe the stories they have to tell.
Wow, it's amazing.
It is amazing.
Well, Sherry, I'd like to thank you for sharing your story. You were amazing, and I'm so happy that I met you.
I'm honored.
Scott, thank you for being vulnerable and sharing all of the things that will help the next person, the next Sherry that's out there that's needing somebody to hold their hand and have faith in them and love and all of that stuff that's important that we all take for granted sometimes, I feel.
Yeah, we're created to love and to be loved.
Yes.
Amen.
If you are inspired by Sherry's story and would like to walk alongside Matthew's Hope on their journey, please go to matthewshopeministries.org, where you will find more information about how you can donate your time, talents, or treasures to help those in our community experiencing homelessness.